So I'm Sebastian. I'm the co-founder of Expero. We're a software consultancy that helps companies build products for expert users. Some of our customers are here tonight. They've been on stage. We design and build OMSs and PMSs and data fabrics and all kinds of good stuff. And drawing from this experience, we've recently created a software platform we call Connected Finance, which has been licensed at a few places, Goldman, Bank of America, to investigate fraud. And we're proud to have been an OpenFin certified development partner since 2016. This Connected Finance platform I'm going to talk about tonight is based on the experience we've built up over these many years. I'm joined by Tim Baker, whose career has been spent building and using products like this at places like IEX, Refinitiv, and UBS. And we'll both talk about the problems we've seen on the finance desktop and how we think they can be fixed.
Great, thanks Sebastian. Great to be here. Let's start by describing some of the key challenges that we've seen through the years across the buy side, the sell side. And it really comes down to these 4 big bullet points. The first is the manipulation of content is fire-hosed at end users. It's got worse over the years, and so we've got this kind of huge cognitive load we're putting on end users. The tools are still very locked down. We've heard about some of the great interoperability between firms working closely together, but essentially a lot of the tools out there are still locked down, very difficult to customize, and very difficult for users to liberate the data from. Apps are very inconsistent. It's great that OpenFin is leading the charge and making everything a lot more similar in terms of look and feel. There's a lot more work to do there. Many apps, will have duplicative capabilities. A chart app over here will look different to a chart app over there. A grid will work differently and look differently to a grid in another company, in another application. And things like watch lists. A user has to put a watch list into every single application. And now we're in the API economy, so there's more and more data available that people want to use and integrate into their workflows, and they just can't do that. And the delivery formats of those APIs are all different. So the outcome, and we've heard about this earlier today, is a pretty horrible user experience. If you don't get that user early in the process, you've lost them if you can't captivate them. So there's a lot of frustration out there across end users, which is great for everyone in this room because we've got a lot of solutions collectively. So kind of on the left-hand side, users really want to own their workflow. They want to own their adventures. They want to be able to tell stories with the data. And they're really wedded to a lot of those core applications like their OMS, their EMS, their IBOR. But the experience still sees users having to hop from one application to another, like a frog on a lily pad jumping to the next lily pad. And that lake, that data lake, is really not accessible. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some really great capabilities coming up through FDC3, through OpenFin. And we think there's a real opportunity to help to kind of fill in the middle, right? What's the missing middle? It's essentially what Connected Finance and the initiative we're going to talk about is really aiming to do. So imagine a world where data from your OMS could be combined with holdings from your IBOR, and prices from your market data vendor, all in one chart, all in one grid view. On that grid, you could do some math. You could maybe create some alerts and push those into the notification center. So these tools and apps are what we call common canvases, places where multiple apps and APIs can paint their data. Imagine the reverse, where a single watch list manager can be synced to all of the apps out there. So you have one place you manage your set of interests. So if we get this right, and we at last move away from this, and I think a lot of our end users are still living in this space, we're going to make everyone's life a lot better. And frankly, this doesn't work if you're working from home. So Sebastian, I'm going to hand back to you. You're going to talk about how you've architected Connected Finance.
So I'm going to lay out the pieces that we've put together to make these things work across a number of clients. First, we have a lot of connectors to the kinds of data that exist in a modern federated desktop. databases, data lakes, APIs, services. And with configuration, when we install our solutions, we're typically integrating to proprietary internal data sources as well. You have to configure the data sources to know how they're related, right? How do I take a set of insider trading reports and join them up with my proprietary holdings information? We teach connected finance when we deploy it how to connect the data that it's fetching together. And finally, every piece of data that flows through a system that we put in needs to be displayed and analyzed in a common set of applications. News calendars, super grids, pivot grids, charting, these common canvases. And so instead of jumping from app to app, you get all your data in one place. Now, this doesn't mean that you replace a lot of these important anchor apps. An OMS is still a big and exciting and complicated thing, but it's also the source of a ton of data I want to paint together with my many other systems. So we use this pattern over and over to unify data and analytics across all manner of these specific use cases, like these fraud investigation tools at Goldman Sachs or risk management at NASDAQ. To make the connected platform work in the finance desktop, we've used OpenFin, and we've built applications, these common canvases, and we've started putting together a growing federation of specialist data providers. Our vision is that a highly connected user experience allows companies to light up the workflows they need with just the data that they want. Each of these firms are experts in their chosen domain, and we've actually heard from a lot of interesting providers this morning that provide their own data this evening, to provide their own API or their own data, maybe a front-end experience, but it's a real challenge to put all that data together. You got to go hire a whole team of developers. Our hope is that we can make that a lot easier. So we're going to show some demonstrations here, pre-recorded videos given the length that we have here, being used in real-world use cases at the fictitious firm Nile Asset Management. Please, I must emphasize that you should not make any investment decisions based on this presentation. While the data you see is real, the decisions being made may raise questions. At Nile Asset Management, Portia and her team, including a keen, eager senior associate, Stephen, manage a large cap growth fund and have made a big bet on Tesla. Tim.
Thank you. And we chose this stock about 3 months ago. We didn't realize the timing was going to be absolutely perfect. So we've got a few video clips, as Sebastian mentioned. This is really actually alludes to a very common use case, which is analysts going away and doing fundamental research on a stock. When you're watching the video, look out for data from Wall Street Horizons, who are specialists in events, from Woodseer, who collect data and forecast dividends, from FinTech Studios, who are scraping the web and creating a news feed, from from Fintel, who are experts in insider and ownership data. And what we've done, and none of this data you'll see is going into a data lake. It's all being served up on the fly in the application. So the first thing that starts is Portia is underwater. So she chats using Symphony and asks her lead associate to do some work on Tesla to make sure they're still on top of the investment case. So the analyst goes in, he likes the company summary, CFT/Tesla gets him straight into it, and there he's got a mashup of content. He's getting the news from FinTech Studios. It already knows that he's interested in Tesla. He can scroll down. If he wants to, he can change context. All of the data on the left-hand side was delivered on the fly from those data providers I mentioned. The events are at the bottom. There's an interactive chart there. So he can very quickly get up to speed with what's going on at Tesla. He's also been following Ford for a while, so he can flip his context to Ford. Now he's checking their numbers. He's seeing that they're actually paying a dividend, unlike Tesla. And he's checking the news flow. He flicks back to Tesla. He now wants to go in and look at the fundamentals, the financials, and see what they look like. And there they all laid out beautifully for them. He can click through. Those interactive charts allow him to investigate and understand trends, underlying trends in the company. The bottom line is he can very, very quickly get a sense for what's going on with Tesla so that he can go to the next stage. And does anyone know what that car is? Anyone thinks it's a Tesla? It's a Porsche, by the way. We couldn't find a really good Tesla picture. So the next thing that he does is he wants to compare Tesla to a bunch of other stocks out there in the same industry. So he wants to build a screener. Now, he's been working on a financial services list. He wants to switch his context from a list of financial services companies to similar companies to Tesla. So he's got about 5 or 6 companies in there. He's just realized he doesn't have GM in there. So he's adding GM to his watch list, and that's going to be reflected in his screener. He's now decided to start to add some fields, and those fields are coming from those various different providers that have been entitled at the firm level. But he's missing that dividend data he wants to add, and so actually he goes to his data browser, and in his data browser he sees pre-entitled data, and he's looking for dividends, and there's Woodseer. He's going to select that. Yeah, they've got the dividend data I want. There's also some scripts he can use if he wants to build a notebook. He goes back in, and magically, scroll down. There's your dividend data. Click on there, and he's good to go. Now he wants to do a calculation. He's thinking these are weird companies. You know, they're not very profitable. So I want to value them using a price-revenue basis instead of price earnings. So he wants to do a quick calculation. So he knows the nomenclature for that. He can create a custom field. He can do that in his grid. And in a minute, and there is, the field is shown up, and he can add that to his grid. Now, the other thing he could probably do is he could set an alert around that and then push that alert into the notification center. So this could be a grid that's got real live trading data, something that he might want to look out for in the future.
He's sharing his workspace now.
And now he's decided to go back to Porsche and share his workspace and say, hey, I've done the work. This is my opinion. I think we should stick with the investment. Sadly, didn't work out that well. Okay, back over to you, I think, Sebastian.
So a few days later, Porsche's alerted that Elon Musk has stated his intention to buy Twitter. And what's great about this, by the way, is that we did a riff on this showing similar concepts in London in December, and there was an equally outrageous Elon Musk story that powered that demonstration. So join us in 3 more months to see what he does, right? So assuming that he'll need to raise money against his Tesla shares, you know, she's going to want to check her exposure to Tesla because she knows her CIO, Tom, is bound to call her with some urgent questions. So in this vignette, Porsche's going to look at her positions grid to do some quick calculations, figure out how overweight she is, look for some positions data from her internal accounting system, or IBOR, some real-time pricing data from IEX, sector data from her benchmark provider, and insider trading records from Fintel. So pulling up her saved workspace, right? So her page within her workspace, she's got a set of positions. She's taken these same controls and saved them to look at the data that's come from her position service. So she can come in and very quickly say, for my portfolio, let me pull up this data, some of this real-time pricing. Let me see, you know, great, the market is ticking when we recorded this video. I'd like to go in and look at some of the information about, you know, how they're trading during the day. And understand how they fit into my benchmark. So I know how to join these positions to the securities, to the fund that they're in, to the benchmark that's registered with the fund, so I can pull up the relevant sector for each of these positions. I can pull in information about what the weighting for that sector has been over, for that position, that security has been over time. And also, just start doing some calculations right there. I'm mix mastering data from all over the place. I can calculate my real-time market value right now instead of relying on whatever came from my accounting system. At that moment, and this is why Porsche has saved this view because it's handy for her, she can see the real-time percent of her fund over or underweight for any of these positions to start informing these conversations. And what does everyone really want to do in the case of these grids? They want a super pivot grid, doesn't everyone? Excel eventually breaks, and she's going to want to be able to slice, dice it, see this by sector, see this by strategy. So that's what she started with, is a quick review of where she is and where her positions are and how it looks right now. If she's interested in this stock, she's probably interested in insider trading, and so she can also, in this grid, pull in information from other providers. In this case, some insider trade records pulled live against that record. So this multi-dimensional joining, multi-dimensional pivoting, all with data from other places and other people. What else do I want to do? Where else do we tell our stories in this industry? We tell our stories in grids and we tell them in charts. And so, having focused on Tesla, I'd like to be able to do the same kind of storytelling with data from multiple providers in a chart. I want to go add the trades that my people have executed against Tesla over the last year and see them on here. Why can't I show anything I want against a time series? I want to be able to show the benchmark allocation that we joined through in the previous screen to my actual fund allocation and see just where I went so terribly wrong going very overweight Tesla back in November when Elon created his own top in the stock. All right, finally, since increasing her position in Tesla back in November, poor Portia's fund is down almost 20% versus the rest of the market down 10%. Tom wants a post-mortem. He wants to go back to all the approvals and analysis and look at whether the investment was at least made efficiently. So now imagine that same chart that we showed before, but zoomed into a single trading day, showing a combination of data including market structure from a vendor like BMLL, trades placed, relevant conversations, emails, chats that are filtered into this particular context, and a trade blotter for that security. We're going to look at a specific moment in time and see what was live and what was happening, and then identify a particular trade we want to look into and pull up information about the depth of the market at that time. So we can show open bids, open asks active at that time from the vendor level 3 data from BMLL. It's all the same concepts, bringing data together from lots of different sources into a common analysis environment to quickly tell the stories we need day to day in the markets. So I hope you enjoyed following these guys through their days, but not reproducing their investment moves. I'm a little worried about Porsche. We showed you a series of applications that brought together data in the tools our business uses: calendars, charts, timelines, blotters, and so on. These are our common canvases. We think these canvases, which are this missing middle of the hundreds of workflows we build in this room, turbocharge the kind of workflows we come to OpenFin for. We get the notifications, we get the rewards of context, home, workspace, but now we can combine data from lots of applications and providers. And I think it's a powerful idea to show how we can combine data in an open architecture so that I can bring my proprietary data, my third-party data, together into one place in a common architecture. Thanks for joining us. The mass is ended.